Case file Malachi 3. Will a man rob God? When a covenant rebuke became a weekly threat.
All right, let's get right into it. We're opening a case file today on one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, one of the most misused passages in the entire Bible. We're going to investigate how this ancient covenant rebuke turned into a modern weekly threat. I mean, that question just stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? It's heavy, it's direct, and it is absolutely loaded with accusation. This is a question that is echoed from pulpits for generations, and it's almost always aimed squarely at the congregation's finances. But was that the original intent? Was this meant to be a timeless financial command for every believer, for all of time? Or has something been lost, or maybe even deliberately twisted along the way? That's what we're here to figure out, separating the actual context from the modern tradition. To solve any case, you gotta start with the most fundamental question. Who are we talking about here? In biblical interpretation, getting the audience right is, well, it's everything. So who is God really speaking to in the book of Malachi? You know, the entire meaning of Malachi chapter 3 really hinges on this one single point. Was God talking to the whole nation of Israel? Was he talking to you and me, future church members? Or was it someone else? Lucky for us, the text itself is not shy about telling us. And there it is, our first huge piece of evidence, stated in plain language in the chapter right before the famous accusation. God points his finger and says, "This is for you, O priests." The rebuke wasn't for the people, it was for the leaders in charge of the system. So let's be crystal clear about this. This commandment, this serious charge of robbery, was aimed directly at the Levitical priests. Full stop. It was not some blanket statement for all people for all time. And understanding that specific, targeted context, well, it changes everything. Okay, so if the priests were the ones being accused of robbery, the next logical question is, what exactly were they stealing? The modern application just assumes it's money, but the text tells a totally different story. And here you can see the massive disconnect. In the original context, the biblical tithe was agricultural. It was food, produce, livestock, things you could eat, and it was brought to a literal physical storehouse in the temple. The modern application, it's been transformed into 10% of your cash income for a church's general budget. These are two completely different systems. The Bible itself spells out what the tithe was for. The purpose wasn't to cover a budget shortfall. It was to fill an empty pantry in the temple. The goal was stated right there, that there may be food in my house. And why was that food so crucial? Well, you have to remember, under the Old Covenant, the tribe of Levi, the priests, they weren't given any land to farm for themselves. Their provision was the tithe that the people brought to the temple. So by mismanaging this system, the priests weren't just being disobedient, they were effectively robbing their fellow Levites of their ability to eat. Now let's talk about the legal framework, or the jurisdiction of this accusation. Malachi is delivering this message under a very specific contract, the Mosaic Covenant, and that agreement came with its own unique set of terms and conditions. The curse that Malachi 3 talks about wasn't some vague spiritual bad luck. No, it was directly tied to the land. God promised to rebuke the devourer, think pests, locusts, and make sure the harvests were good if the nation was obedient. It was an agricultural and a national covenant, not a personal financial contract. And this, right here, is the absolute game changer in the new covenant. For anyone who believes in Christ, that entire system of covenant curses has been dealt with. It's finished. You simply cannot threaten a Christian with a curse that Christ himself has already taken for them. So, let's just connect the dots. To apply Malachi 3 today the way it's often taught, you'd need the whole system to still be in place. You'd need a Levitical priesthood, a physical temple in Jerusalem, a food-based storehouse, and the entire system of land-based curses and blessings. None of these things exist for a new covenant believer. So here's the bottom line. Using Malachi 3 to demand a tithe from Christians isn't carrying on a biblical principle. It's reaching back into an expired legal system, pulling out one specific command, and completely ignoring the context and the fulfillment we have in Christ. So if Malachi 3 doesn't apply to us, does that mean Christians just shouldn't give? Not at all, far from it. But what the New Testament does is introduce a radically different motivation and method for our giving. The teaching from the apostles shifts the entire foundation from law to grace. It's meant to be something we do voluntarily, from our hearts, with joy and real purpose, not out of some reluctant duty or, even worse, because we're afraid of being cursed.
This verse pretty much says it all. This is the New Testament standard, and it stands in direct opposition to the idea of giving because you feel forced or threatened. The motivation is supposed to be an internal decision rooted in love, not external pressure rooted in fear.
Okay, this brings us to the end of our investigation, and it leaves us with a pretty big question. If the context is so clear, why in the world is this passage still used to demand money? Well, the answer, unfortunately, is pretty simple.
It works. Fear is a powerful motivator. Threatening people with a divine curse or accusing them of robbing God is an incredibly effective way to get consistent financial compliance. But just because a tactic is effective doesn't mean it's truthful.
So here is the final verdict from our case file. Finding number 1. The intended audience, the Levitical priests, was completely misidentified and swapped out with the congregation.
Finding number 2, the legal framework of the Mosaic covenant with its very specific curses and its agricultural context was totally ignored. And finding number 3, the threatening language of the passage was turned into a weapon to produce compliance, which directly contradicts the New Testament's clear teaching on cheerful voluntary giving.
The evidence is conclusive. The context is clear. The case is closed.
If the cross put it to death, we tag it, tow it, and refuse to resurrect it. Share it if it helped you. Subscribe if someone else needs it. We sow truth the way Jesus taught, not the way man demands.